Well, hello, friends. This is teZa, and this is the Z Lord podcast. Without Carter, he is down below. We are at Anchorage, and this is our third night here off the tip of Cumberland Island in Georgia. Probably a lot of people know about Cumberland these days because it's been talked about a lot on the latest TV serial about JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. But here we are at Anchorage, and I just want to tell you a little bit about what it's like to live aboard Bird, our beautiful 25-foot McGregor sailboat with no sail and with no mast, but we've turned it into the riverboat and our little dinghy Birdie. So Carter's napping because we've had quite a harrowing last couple days. And a friend of mine texted and said, I hope you're vlogging this. Well, guess what? I can't even upload the last podcast I did for Z Lord, which is audio, and I sure as heck can't get on any YouTube vlogging. There's no internet here at Anchorage, and there's very little reception out of all the bars you get. I got a little tiny one, maybe half one, enough to send a text. And so I thought I would take the opportunity before we go into our next series of kind of non-stop traveling to tell you what's going on aboard the good ship Bird. So we came to this beautiful Anchorage in anticipation of waiting for the right tide, the right wind to make the crossing between Cumberland Island and Jekyll. I hope I said that right. It's not Jekyll. It's not Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's Jekyll. I always get them mixed up. And so we thought we would explore Cumberland. We've been here before with bikes. We brought a boat years ago with some bikes. It's funny because the Coast Guard stopped us because we looked like refugees. The Coast Guard is pretty strict about mysterious looking boats, and ours is definitely a strange looking boat. On the Bird, here we have an awning up most of the time, and it looks like a floating tent. But inside the tent, of course, is our cockpit. And Carter and I are either at the helm or fiddling about down below, getting something together, or looking for, here on the Intracoastal, one of the many markers that mark the way, that give you the signal of where to stay in the channel. And you have to be pretty alert. You can't just read a book. You can't just listen to some music. You have to stay alert because there's boats, and some of them are quite big. Some of them are tugboats, and some of them even a 230-foot cruise ship, I think, that we talked about in our last podcast, if I can figure out how to upload it. It was called American Glory, specifically designed for intercoastal waterways. And it only draws a little bit because, of course, the intercoastal is shallow compared to the ocean, but they keep the main channel dredged mandatory. It has to be 6 feet, I believe, and 6 feet is enough to accommodate a heavily loaded barge and a special tug that's designed for inland waters, not ocean-going tugs, and boats like ours that don't have much of a keel. We pull, or we draw, in sailor lingo, not even 2 feet. And an ocean-going sailboat will draw something like 6 foot or 7 foot, sometimes even more if they're just designed for racing around the world. But of course, those kind of boats cannot go on the rivers. You have to have a shallow draft. I know a lot of this is sailor jargon, but that's what makes it exciting to know about that. So we arrived at our anchorage here at Cumberland and dropped the hook. That's the anchor. And I'm in charge of anchoring. And lo and behold, the first anchorage did not work because we just didn't approach it correctly. We'd already done several other anchorages because this was our third day of anchoring by the time we arrived here at Cumberland. All the other anchorages were fine, but this one, we weren't facing the wind right. The current is funky. The wind is going one way, the current's going another way, and God knows what's happening on the bottom of the 20-something feet below us, but it just didn't catch. You have to have the anchor firmly catching into whatever kind of bottom there is, whether it's sand or mud or well, if it's rock, that's not good. You don't want to anchor in a rocky situation. So we pulled up the anchor and we did it again, and the second anchorage was successful. And both Carter and I are experienced, so any of you who are listening, don't be too worried. But, you know, it's a learning curve for us too. There's so much about being on the water that is so very different than being on land and just flicking on a switch and there's your electric. And, you know, on a boat, you have to create your own electricity. You have to bring either the water in jugs or, you know, a water tank, and food, of course. You always have to think ahead. Do you have enough? And so I'll get into that because just today I made the last meal from our tiny little ice chest. So from now on it's going to be canned goods. But I bought good canned goods, you know, protein and vegetables in cans rather than just a little tiny bit of Chef Boyardee stuff. But you know, when you're at sea, you just want quick and easy. You don't want to have a gourmet meal. The meal I made just now was a little bit of leftover lettuce. I sauteed it with lots of garlic. Yes, you can cook with lettuce, folks. There are such things as lettuce soup and all sorts of interesting things, but so lettuce can be used as a vegetable. And then I added, after lots and lots of sauteing, and it had turned really kind of almost crispy, I added, let's see, what did I add? I added noodles, chickpea noodles, and then I added a clam juice, which I had, and I had a can of clams, which I brought in there, and so that all boiled and cooked up nicely, and add a little water and let it steam for the rest. You don't have to cook noodles all the way, just let them steam. Meanwhile, I was making a salad with the very last of our lettuce. I think I brought 3 or 4 heads with us when we left 4 days ago. Every night we had like a half a head of lettuce with all sorts of other things like cucumbers and celery and whatnot that we had in our cooler. But tonight, yeah, it is empty. The cooler is empty. It's drying out and ready for the next batch wherever we can run into some fresh vegetables. Hopefully the next stop. And so by the time we had this beautiful meal, I guess you can't call it clams linguine. It was clams, chickpea noodles with a nice salad. It was delicious. It was absolutely delicious. And for beverage, I made what's it called? It's the new kind of substitute for coffee. It's made of mushrooms and has cacao in it, and also different kind of instant dissolving mushrooms. It was quite tasty with a lot of milk. And for milk, I buy the UHT. That stands for ultra high temperature, and that lasts quite a long time, rather as opposed to regular milk. And that's something I became accustomed to like decades ago. The French people that I sailed with in the Caribbean, they turned me on to UHT, and now it's become quite a common commodity in grocery stores, and you can get it at Walmarts and all sorts of regular grocery stores. UHT, so it's ultra high pasteurized too, or temperature. So here we were at our anchorage, and we thought, oh, we have to see Cumberland Island. So we went to shore, and we wanted to go for a walk. And we went for a nice long walk. Oh, Carter is waking up from a nap. Maybe he'll join me. I'm talking about Carter, our adventures, because I don't want to forget about it. So we went off for our walk, and we didn't even think about bugs, insects, ticks, or anything like that. When we packed for this trip, we thought, oh, we're going to be on the water. We don't have to bring any tick prevention stuff. But lo and behold, Cumberland Island is filled with deer, besides the wild horses. And before we knew it, we saw ticks crawling all over us, which is not good. So when we got back to the boat, we did a tick check, and both of us had several, not just regular ticks, but deer ticks, those little tiny things that are just about as big as a pencil dot on paper. But when we came back after our 4-mile walk, lo and behold, we were high and dry on a cliff. And we did not realize that there was going to be a cliff there. And the cliff was not just a beautiful sandy cliff. It was rocky and covered with mud like clay. It was the most treacherous looking cliff. And it was about a 6-foot drop from where our dinghy was, dinghy called Birdie, to the water. So we studied the situation for a while, And we had gas cans on board the dinghy because we have to carry gas for our auxiliary outdoor motor. And so we decided to hide the gas cans and make a run for it with the dinghy because the winds were increasing. And just a second. Hey, Carter, can you keep it down? He's asking for earplugs. This is on board the boat, right? He's asking for earplugs, and I'm trying to give you an update. That's what it's like when you live in close quarters. You have to learn to adapt, to cooperate. So anyway, we got back to the boat, but it was pretty hairy, and we were hoping to get back to the boat and just have a nap. But we get back to the boat, and we're in the middle of a nor'easter. And the nor'easter is honking. I mean, it's 20 miles an hour. And our little anchor is getting tested severely. So we're studying the situation. Do we need to move? Do we need to put out a second anchor? We let out a lot more line because the more line you have on an anchor, the easier it is on the pressure of the anchor, and it can hold really deeply. It's a Danforth anchor, for any of those of you know. It's a really good anchor. And so we studied the situation. We started looking at tide charts because the little bit of internet that we are able to get, we could get some apps. So that's a blessing, boy. We could look at some tide charts. We could look at some wind charts. And we decided that we had to wait another 2 days for the wind to die to make this next crossing, which is kind of hairy. It's across, I think it's called St. Andrews, which is the strait. It's open to the ocean, but it's in between Cumberland Island and Jekyll Island. And you don't want to have too much wind or tide, and you certainly don't have any engine problems. For a super motorboat, it's no problem. You just roar across, but we're not that. We're just chugging along at a little 9 horsepower and, just having a very comfortable time. So I just wanted to give you a little update about what it's like here aboard the good ship Bird with the captain down below insisting on earplugs because I'm up here talking to you. But it is very close quarters, and we're getting used to it. We've only been out to river, out to the Intracoastal now for 5 days. So it takes a while to adapt, to be living in such close quarters, and to be sharing so many responsibilities that your life depends upon. So because of my good friend Lee Ann suggesting that I vlog, I can't vlog, but I can talk to my podcast people. Okay? And I send you lots of love. And just remember, keep life spiritual, because no matter what's happening to you, it's about us and our spirit all connected. We are one. I love you. Bye-bye. Okay.
All right, here we are.
All right. The captain is with me today.
Resume. She got the thing working on so we can keep going.
Yeah, well, we're learning how to, add on to a little bit of the podcasting I did originally. But anyway, here we are. It's a couple of days later. We're at another entire anchorage. We are now, tell us where we are, Carter.
teFusky, just north of Charleston, just south of Hilton Head's coming up next, but we're right at the South Carolina-Georgia line. teFusky is an interesting island. I know some guys from teFusky, actually Big Black, the greatest drummer.
And he is big and he is black.
Earth,
we love Big Black.
According to Dizzy Gillespie, said he was the greatest drummer alive, and he's the youngest brother of 13, and I knew his older brother Fish before him, who was a great musician. And these are Geechee guys, which are big, handsome, friendly, really black skin, dark skin, and Fish was really embraced me and embraced everybody, and these Geechee.
Wait a minute, Fish was his brother?
Fish Ray was his brother.
Fish Ray, and
was
you
a
met them in the
musician.
Bahamas, didn't you?
Well, they
Where'd you meet them?
played in the Bahamas, but I met them through Don Sala, who was in America at that time in Florida. But they were. They had a lot of great things about them. They were very wise and funny, but they basically had zero prejudice towards anyone. It was remarkable
for black people, especially
at
because
that time when it
or
was a
white,
hard
but
time.
the black people can be very prejudiced amongst themselves even. Because I know that from having lived on a black country, that the black people can be prejudiced among themselves, not just to white people. So that's all I just wanted to interject.
But the Geechees are unique in my experience in the world, and they actually talk about the Gullah Geechee corridor, which stretches basically from South Carolina to North Florida, and a lot of the people that came to Fort Mose, which is slowly coming onto into. So the Gullah Geechee corridor is spoken of in the United States now, and so a lot of these people that came down there to North Florida were from this area, and this is a big slave area. Now this island we're across from now is Defusky, and these Geechees were brought here. And it's my understanding, because Big Black told me that they owned a bunch of this land, and it got bought away from them by the developers about 60 years ago, I guess. The last time he was here, he was 3. He's 90 now.
Yeah, and he said they've built a golf course over his father's grave.
Yeah,
That's very sad.
It was sad.
But that happens, life changes.
But anyway, this island here is one of the sea islands. Just like, I'm not sure what the name of Hilton Head was before it became Hilton Head, but anyway, Defusky, this is the next one down. So we're here.
Plantation, right? It was
a plantation.
It was a plantation
yeah.
island.
And then the Geechee people inherited the land when I guess when the slavery thing came to an end. They got this land, and so they had it for 100 years until the developers came. So anyway, this is a very interesting place, and has been interesting in my life because I've known Black and Fish Ray for 50 or 60 years, and they always talked about it. It's their homeland, and I'm glad to be here and see it.
Well, we tried to dock last night, but the dock was treacherous. There was a big current, and so we decided to anchor off the island, and maybe we'll make another approach today.
Yeah, we'll make another chance today. I can see where we can go.
Yeah, every day is different. Every minute is different when you're on the water. When you wake up in the morning at an anchorage, it's just calm and peaceful. There's not a ripple. And this morning, the crabbers were out pulling up their pots right next to us, and
right next to us
with the raucous music going on. It was funny.
But it's the thing about the anchorages is that it's really quiet, and we've been fortunate. And there's these little creeks, and you can pull into a creek and get out of the weather, and except for that place on Cumberland where it was howling so bad.
When we came back from our walk,
everything else has been, it's just calm and nice, and we have more faith in our anchor now. Our anchor's been holding great, so we're confident to go and put it down anywhere.
I'm in charge of anchoring, and so that's my duty, and Carter is in charge of just about everything else. I mean, he's really
we row ashore in our little dinghy.
Amazing person on the water. Like yesterday, the bolts from the vibration of the engine just had come off of our tiller, and without us even noticing. And these sort of things happen all the time, and they happen for people in houses.
This is the same tiller that broke early on in the trip, and we taped it together with
Gorilla Tape.
Gorilla Tape.
Yay, Gorilla Tape.
And yesterday it was bobbing up and down, and I looked back, and all those
bolts were
bolts had gone except for one. There was one left that was holding it in place because it couldn't get out because of the tape had.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So what we did, just for you want to know, if those of you who are not used to boating, we just had to quietly heave to, which is like just stop moving. Our engine was going all the time, though, in case we had an emergency, just in neutral. And we were in a place where it was safe, so we could just drift. You're rolling with the waves, but meanwhile Carter had to go through a bunch of boxes of tools and nuts and bolts and to find the right kind of diameter bolts and nuts, and that took a while, and then he had to maneuver to get them through. So this was like an hour of repair.
Miracle we had the right the right stuff with us. But
I'll
this
say.
this boat had been outfitted by Richard Cook beforehand, who is a kind of an
Free
engineer
notes.
type.
Freenotes.com.
He makes these unbelievable instruments that are now in something like 11,000 parks
Really?
around the
Wow.
United States, some ungodly number, and they're like xylophone type things where you can go and the kids can play and make music and
Wow,
everything.
amazing.
He's kind of a genius
Yeah,
guy.
a mechanical genius. So he had
Put
put all
this
the
stuff
nuts
in
and
this,
bolts on board.
and he's a pretty good sailor too. And he'd been on this boat before, and so in the stash was this assortment of stuff. And
Yeah.
and fortunately, he had the
Wow.
right bolt, and the
Amazing,
right
huh?
stuff, and we just had to put it together.
Well, we thought it was one of those little tiny miracles that just happen in life. You know, we have witnessed many miracles, especially when you live close to nature, living on a boat. You're much closer to nature than you are when you're living in a house, because you have the variables of the wind, the weather, the current, the tide, other boaters, and here in the river, of course, there's shifting sands. And we passed the dredge yesterday, the dredging operation that has to continuously open up the channels here in the Intracoastal. You might say a little bit about that, Carter, because it's a tugboat life, isn't it?
It was the type of thing that we used to deal with the tugs and all. Yeah, they were actually weren't operating; they were set up. But that was probably the dredge that passed us in the middle
Definitely
of the night
the
a couple
dredge,
of days before, and they hadn't set up yet. But something interesting happened because we had to cross over the Savannah River, and so instead of electing to go into Savannah, into town,
To get some shrimp.
we
and
just decided to.
what do you want?
cross
Bang
over-
shrimp? You wanted to go
cross-
into?
We decided to cross over the river and come up here and get back down in the woods again off the Defusky. But as we were coming across, it's a major shipping place, and there was this huge tanker coming down
Huge.
the river.
It's like a city-wide.
And I was telling teZa, because we moved pretty slow, and we were just kind of poking across the river, and you could see the ship up maybe 2 miles away, or maybe a mile anyway, a long way away. It not threatening. And I said to teZa, I says, you see that ship? I says, that sucker's coming at us about 5 times faster than you think it is. Because it has, first of all, it's going downstream, so it had to be going fast enough to be able to maneuver through the water, which means it had to go whatever it goes, plus the 3 miles an hour that the river's going. So it was going probably, and it's, I don't know, it was 500, 400, 500 feet long. And so it was going probably 25 miles an hour. And it's deceptive. And I says, you see that? We need to get across the river here because we're just poking. We're going 5 miles an hour. Of course, it was not a big river, so I knew we could make it. But nevertheless,
Yeah,
it's an issue, and you don't want to get in front of one of those guys.
especially if your tiller all of a sudden falls apart,
And
or
teZa hasn't been around those vessels
or
much.
the engine stops, which
But I
was
have, and so a couple of things happened. Actually, we lost our fender over the side, and it drifted back out into the river. So we had to turn around and go back and get it.
Carter was
And
looking,
in the
and I
meantime-
did not see it. I mean, he all of a sudden he said something went overboard. I said I didn't see
We
it.
had to go get it. So anyway, we had to go back out of the river to get it. In the meantime, I looked up and I said, "teZa, you see that?" And she looked up, and this friggin' boat is upon us. And I
Wait a
started
minute,
laughing.
what, the fender was
No, that-
overboard? No, the big ship.
The big ship was it was so much closer, and,
Was it?
and
I didn't
it
even
came on us
notice.
so fast.
Oh my God!
It had covered so much
Whoa.
ground in such a short amount of time
Good thing I
that
didn't
all
see
of a
it.
sudden it was on us.
Oh my God!
And I was watching, but I was laughing about it, and teZa was
I was finagling this like 20-foot long piece of bamboo that we decided to harvest from our bamboos at home. We grow wild bamboos, and so we decided, okay, we might need some long sticks if we
Kedge.
a kedge, just
Oh, a kedge to push off banks and push off docks and
more
push
than a
off
boat
things.
hook. And so I was grabbing this big long piece of bamboo and thinking, how am I going to get that fender close to our boat so we could rescue it? Because, you know, it's another piece of equipment that we would
We
be
got
missing.
it, but I wasn't going to go any further out than we were going to make one pass, and if we didn't get it, we weren't going to keep going after it because that ship was coming.
Yeah,
And
fortunately we got it.
it was very interesting to see that big sucker coming down on us so fast.
I
like
didn't
that.
even notice, Carter, that it was behind us. I was so focused on getting that
She
bamboo
woke up
out.
and saw it. She says, "Oh my
Oh
God!"
my God! It's coming for us! Whoa.
I'd warned her when we were first coming. I said, "See that pointing off in the distance?" I said, "That guy's going a lot faster than you think he is." So anyway, it's all of that. It's interesting and it's fun and it's just
Yeah.
it's just part of.
So, okay,
Paying attention.
just to wind up this little episode of Z Lord, I just want to bring it into our consciousness about why are we doing this? We're doing it for various reasons. I have my reasons and Carter has his reasons. So, do you want to go first, Carter? Why are we doing this? And then I'll
You
talk
say
about
why
mine.
you're doing it.
Well, I'm doing it because I like
I'm
to.
doing it.
Well,
Back me up.
I am your mate,
You're
and
going
I
because
believe
I
in.
wanted to go.
That's part of it, yeah. But I could also say, no way, Jose, because if you went once to the worldwide wrestling situation. I didn't want to go there, so I say no. And there are things that you go to that I have no interest whatsoever. But I have a long history with boating, mostly sailing in the Caribbean and cargo ship business, and I have a long history with boats. So I was interested in seeing, wow, do I still have it? Can I still live on the water? Do I have enough simplicity under my belt so that I can live without all the fineries of land living? I mean, you flick a switch and the lights go on, right? Or if you have a nice evening of relaxation, you sit around and you watch a Netflix or something like that, or even just go to the grocery store when you run out of milk. So I really wanted to test myself to see how tough I really am. And I must tell you, folks, we've been out here for a week and I have become a big sissy. I'm amazed at how, landlubber I have become.
You've become a shore bastard.
I've become a shore bastard. I mean, it's really been a difficult week. I'm just now starting to
You're
feel...
doing great, baby.
Yeah, but
I think you're doing
I'm
good.
being honest. It's taken me a week. I feel relaxed now because we had to fine tune my involvement. I just can't do the kind of steering that is necessary here. Long, far off markers you have to see and head for, and I'm used to steering with the wind and steering on a compass, and it's a whole different ballgame
It's
here.
a little unnerving when the engine shuts off in the middle of the
Yeah,
crossing
well,
out way out in the
right.
way out in the middle. That's not good. That
We had
happened.
an engine crisis, and that
Plus
set me.
all that wind howling.
It makes you have a
You
tension.
you packed your emergency
Well, that
shipwreck bag.
that is what I think people identify as stress. Stress is kind of like an underlying, like a rumble. That's what I was feeling. I was feeling stress of things weren't right because the motor was not right, and I was not familiar. So now I don't feel the stress. That rumble is gone. And so for me, also, besides testing how I can be with simple living, I also think of myself as having a spiritual life rather than just a physical one. And to be with nature, to be really with nature and on nature, like on the water and at one with nature, is to me sublime. So now that the stress
Hasn't been so sublime.
no, this last week was very stressful for me. I was feeling, what the hell am I doing here? This is not nature. This is, and
Well, we weren't sure the anchor was going to hold. That wasn't good either.
Well,
it
we
was middle of
tested
the
it.
night and it was blowing like hell.
well, that's already been tested, right? The Cumberland.
Now we're good.
The Cumberland.
moment, it wasn't good.
May I finish, please? Let me finish my sentence. When you have a stressful situation, like we had high winds, we had a nor'easter when we came back from that walk in Cumberland. So that was our test for the anchor. And after that test, there was no more stress about the anchor because the anchor held in more than 20 mile an hour gusts. Who knows what they were? We don't have a windometer here. But so we tested the anchor, and now that stress has been removed. And I think it's a beautiful thing in life, a spiritual life, when you identify what stresses are underlying our happiness, and then we work at either accepting them. We can't change them, like the serenity prayer. You accept what is happening, or you do whatever you can to change it, to have the courage to change it. And in this situation, we now know that the anchor is really great under high winds. And what we did change was some of my responsibilities. Carter's doing a lot more of the steering, and I don't have to look for those unseeable markers that are like 5 miles off, and we don't have a good pair of binoculars. They're really not very good at all. So for me, it's been a spiritual test, and I'm looking forward to it being more relaxing. We're now like in our second week, and so I'm hoping it's going to be more relaxing. And so for Carter, what would you like to share with people who are listening? Why are you on this trip?
Well, it's a good way to get out into the wilderness, because the minute you get on the water, and especially if you get away from towns and out into the Intracoastal, I've already been on it before, so I know how wild and immediately empty it is of humans. There's a boat here and there, but generally there's nothing. And like at night, it's just deathly quiet at these anchorages. It's just great. We're sleeping like
I don't
kings.
like that deathly quiet thing. Can't you say like sublimely quiet?
It's quiet and it's great, and the boat rocks a little bit, and we've got enough blankets to be warm enough, so we're comfortable.
We got our sleeping bags, and we got our
totally
down
comfortable in every possible way, and we don't have any rush when we get up. We can take our time. We got a little coffee thing going, so we got everything you could ever want in life right here. Everything.
This is familiar to you. What you're saying is you have experienced this before. And so it's familiar, and you want to do it.
I'm a coasting guy. I'm not a blue water sailor. I'm a coast guy. I like to be around the estuaries. So yeah, I'm comfortable in the estuaries. And then and they're changing constantly. You know, there's big creeks and little creeks and big sound wide crossings that are open to the ocean, and then there's these little things, and the Intracoastal is well marked, and you know, there's enough around so that it's not dangerous. And
okay,
so it's
That's
pretty
great.
safe, and it's also, once we finally got this boat fixed, it should be very inexpensive to exist, because it's all free from here on out.
it hasn't been free up to this
Cost us
point.
$500 to get the engine fixed, but we did fix the engine, and we hardwired the gas line right directly into the engine, and it hasn't missed one beat since then. So we've had 3 days of perfect engine performance, and as long as that continues, that's a big part of the battle.
Thanks to Cody, who came from Brunswick to help us, and so
Cody, the marine mechanic,
yeah,
he was a great guy, and he was very honest and forthright, and he was an excellent mechanic.
yeah.
And he'd had some of his own issues in life, and
As we all do.
and he was kind of on the comeback trail in his business, and it was nice. He was a great person, and he knew what he was doing.
He
too.
knew that we were passing by, so he said he put off another job to come rescue us, and that was really sweet of him. Thanks, Cody. We're going to send him this podcast so he knows that we acknowledge his help. Thanks so much. Well, so today, what are we doing today, Cap?
Well, I think we're going to go over there and go ashore and get a little exercise. And if we don't,
Over Dufesky?
if we're here long enough,
Dufesky?
yeah, if it's interesting and we can find some stuff and some traces of Big Black's life. And I know there's an old cemetery here.
No, he said
Even
it's
though
gone.
No, there's a cemetery here,
Yeah?
a historical
Ah,
cemetery.
okay.
Whether Black's people are in it or not, I don't know.
Well, we'll
But
ask around and see if we can
apparently
find
not.
any people who. So his real name, it was not Big Black. It was
Danny Ray.
Danny Ray. So we'll
Fish
go.
Ray.
We'll go online and see if we can
And
find
Damper
him.
and
Go on shore.
Rebecca. And I knew a lot of his brothers and sisters. They were some of the finest, the finest people I've ever known. They were so kind.
Yeah.
And even though a couple of them had been to prison, they were still
Right.
the finest. I mean, the brothers, they were tough
A lot
guys.
of great people end up in prison just because they're desperate and
But
they do desperate things.
His sister, who lived in Burton, was just the finest, and she was huge, great, big, beautiful. She was about 6'1" or 2".
Oh, I remember. Wait a minute. She used to do the sand dance.
She was a fire dancer.
A fire dancer.
And they would pour alcohol on her skin and light it on fire, and she danced.
That's
yeah.
horrible.
And she did that for years.
That's
and
horrible.
She did it in the Bahamas.
That must, that's painful. That's not.
It wasn't painful.
Alcohol,
She did it. Was
burning
part
on
of her.
his-
There's some kind of substance. I don't know what it was, but I saw.
Yes.
But she was just
That doesn't sound right.
beautiful, God, and so kind.
remember
And we
seeing
stayed
pictures
at her
of her.
house, and
Well, anyway, folks, we're having a great time, and this
just so that you know, Joe Frazier is Geechee.
Joe Frazier.
Joe Frazier's from this part of the world, Burton, South Carolina.
And he was a fighter, right?
Beautiful. Yeah, he fought Muhammad
I don't.
Ali. He was
Yeah.
he was
fought.
brutal.
Oh my
One of
God.
the great fighters that ever lived. He
So
was
the
tough as
Geechee,
nails.
are just specifically from the out islands of South Carolina and Georgia.
Yes,
Right.
They're low country people, but they're unique in that they're large. I mean, they're tall and they're big and they're muscular and strong and powerful. They're big, heavy, strong people, and their skin is really ebony, ivory black, and it's just beautiful. Their skin is just
Ivory
beautiful.
black. Wait a minute, that's
Oh,
a
man,
dichotomy.
they're just wonderful, and you can see them. You'll recognize them, and they just occupy this low country from Charleston and maybe McClellanville, even all the way down into North Florida. And
Okay.
and you know that, and they came, I think, from Dahomey. I'm not sure exactly. Ivory Coast, I think they came from, but they were a special group, and it was my understanding that I was told that they were from a royal lineage that got captured by some of the local people, and then they sold them. But these were a royal bunch, and they look it.
Because they're so big and beautiful.
Oh, they're just so handsome looking, and I'm telling you, they have no prejudice. They just love everybody. They're full of love, but they're plenty tough, plenty strong. But they start with love and embrace and laughter.
And that's the best. That's
It's
the
a
best.
wonderful way to
That's
be.
the best kind of human, and that's the spiritual human. No prejudice. We are all one. We are all connected. We are all just little atoms in this existence.
By the way, we're reading this very interesting book that teZa was reading called "Believing is Seeing." It was written by a guy who was 5/8 Mexican, 1/8 Cuban, and 1/4 Austrian, named Guillen. And
Michael Guillen.
And he became I think a PhD in physics, math, and
everything.
and quantum physics. Anyway, he's a brilliant guy. He's been
He has a triple PhD.
he's been on TV a lot, and he's real smart, and he's very down home, easygoing guy. And he was an atheist, and he became a Christian because he was, as he was doing his studies, he realized that Christianity and physics and science were absolutely in agreement,
In sync.
with everything, and he thought that was also, that the atheists were in concert with science, and it turns out that the atheism is actually contrary to science, and so
He proves it.
It's a
He
great
doesn't-
book.
It's not
It's
just
very,
a philosophy.
very interesting.
He proves it with
Science.
theories and facts.
And he knows about, he understands all of these complex theories, which none of us do. But
yeah, it's a really
it's
interesting
a
book.
very interesting book. So there'll be more on that later as
We'll
we
keep you
learn more.
posted.
But he explains it in a simple English language that anybody can understand.
And we'll try to keep you abreast of what we discover. Like today, we're going to go into Fuskie's Island, and we'll see if we can find any remnants of Big Black's heritage his father and his mother both were born on this island. And so we'll see if we can find any ancestral information. I know there's a museum here too.
Yeah, and it's not that there's anything against the negative about atheists, because that's a legitimate position to take in the world, but it's just interesting that
It's just a position.
oftentimes it's linked with the fact that, well, and he was an atheist, is that science
Yes, he
is
was.
Excludes God but he found that it actually empirically is not exclude God. On the contrary, so that's very interesting and a new kind of way of thinking, because most of the scientists are atheistic. So as we learn and grow and we all get more close with each other, that's the thinking. That's the book we're reading as we go along here. Okay.
So if anyone has not told you
That and how to get
today,
rich by dividends.
Carter's always reading books about financial success, and I'm always reading books about, I don't know, like magical...
How to get rich with dividends.
Mysticism and all
Great
that
book.
stuff. But anyway, I always want to send out a message of love. If nobody today has told you that they love you, I send my love. And even though Carter scoffs at this, I know that he too feels it deep in his heart that we send our love. Because love is really, love is such a stupid word for it, but love is everything. Love is consciousness. Love is beingness. Love is the opposite of fear. So be in love with love. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
In a
Om
minute.
Namah
Next
Shivaya.
time, as Big Black would say, in a minute.
And as I would
Here we are
say,
in his homeland.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Tefusky.
Tefusky.